Night descends over Kuala Lumpur, calm and heavy with the hum of engines. Floodlights paint silver streaks across the runway as Flight 370 prepares for takeoff. Inside the cabin, 239 passengers breathe the same recycled air, some texting goodnight, others closing their eyes, unaware they are stepping into legend. At 12:41 a.m., the jet lifts effortlessly into the sky, its wings slicing through the clouds like blades of light. Minutes later, the transponder blinks once, twice, and vanishes. In the tower, the operator leans forward, tapping the screen, confusion turning to dread. Malaysia 370, do you copy? Silence. The headset crackles with static. A cup of coffee grows cold beside trembling hands. Below, the South China Sea lies vast and unbroken, its dark surface reflecting nothing. Somewhere between one heartbeat and the next, the sky closed over them, and the world never saw the plane again. Morning came the way it always does, gentle, rehearsed, the kind of calm that hides its fragility. On the tarmac, ground crew pushed carts between glistening puddles of fuel and rain, their laughter muffled by the low growl of turbines. Inside the cabin, a chorus of small human rituals unfolded, seatbelts snapping, overhead bins closing, the shuffle of coats and pillows. A father tucked his daughter's blanket higher, whispering that they'd be in Beijing by breakfast. A young man adjusted his tie, staring at his reflection in the darkened window, already lost in the day ahead. In the cockpit, the captain's voice carried a quiet confidence. "Smooth air tonight," he said, scanning the instruments glowing in amber light. The co-pilot's fingers moved with precision, flipping switches like a pianist returning to a familiar song. Outside, the runway stretched endlessly into darkness, framed by the rhythmic blink of navigation lights, green, red, white, a language only the sky understood. Back in the control tower, the night shift was calm. A soft song played from a radio near the console. Coffee steamed gently beside a clipboard of flight codes. A mother, somewhere far away, sent her last text, "Call me when you land." The phone chimed once, delivered. As the aircraft lifted through the clouds, the world below faded to glittering threads. There's a peace that comes just before disaster, a stillness too perfect to last. In that silence, 239 souls rose into the dark, believing morning would find them. At 1:21 a.m., Flight MH370 stopped answering. No distress call, no alarm, just silence, sudden and absolute. On the radar screens, a small green dot blinked once, then vanished into the static. Technicians stared, waiting for it to return. It didn't. The hum of machines filled the room like a held breath. "Maybe a signal drop," one said. Another replied quietly, "Then why can't we hear them?" Above the Gulf of Thailand, the night stretched endless and indifferent. The sea shimmered faintly under moonlight, unaware it was about to become the center of the world's grief. Pilots in nearby aircraft listened to empty frequencies. The air felt too still, too quiet, as though the sky itself had closed its hand around a secret. Back on land, most of the passengers' families slept, dreaming ordinary dreams. A wife in Kuala Lumpur stirred in her bed, heart pounding for reasons she couldn't name. She reached for her phone. The last message still glowed softly, "See you tomorrow." By sunrise, the control tower had tried 31 times to reach the cockpit. Every call returned nothing but static. The ocean gave no echo, no trace. Then the first press alert arrived, 2 words that would define the day: contact lost. Mothers called airports. Friends called hotlines. Each voice fell into the same dark silence. Across continents, newsrooms filled with restless typing, maps of flight paths, and theories that grew faster than facts. Strangers around the world sat before glowing screens, refreshing for updates, watching those same 2 words spread through dawn like cold ink: missing aircraft. And somewhere out there, over a horizon too wide to imagine, a phone kept ringing, its tone cutting through the dark, unanswered, long after the signal had died. By dawn, the world was awake. Breaking news flashed across every screen: passenger jet missing. Last contact 1:21 a.m. In control rooms from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, disbelief settled like fog. Operators traced the last known path, their fingers trembling over the glowing maps. The data didn't make sense. The plane had turned west, away from its route, as if guided by a ghost. Search teams launched within hours. Helicopters cut through the humid air, rotors slicing against the gray dawn. Ships moved in tight grids, scanning the vast Indian Ocean with sonar, their lights flickering across water that looked calm, too calm. From above, it was beauty hiding indifference. In Malaysia, airport halls filled with families clutching photos and passports. Some prayed, some shouted. Some simply stared at the arrivals board that never changed. Reporters pushed microphones forward as officials repeated the same line, "We are still searching." A woman's voice broke through the chaos, searching where? No one answered. Days turned to weeks. The Indian Ocean stretched wider with every failed attempt. Debris? None. Signals? Gone. Hope? Thinning. Then, a faint satellite ping, a single heartbeat from the void. Engineers leaned over screens, whispering it's still flying. Another voice said that's impossible, but no one looked away. Every hour brought a new theory: hijacking, fire, pilot suicide, mechanical failure, even cover-up. The internet turned into a storm of maps, red lines, and desperate logic. People around the world joined the search from their screens, as if connection alone could pull the plane back into existence. Meanwhile, the ocean remained silent. French vessels dropped sonar buoys that sank into black water, sending pings into the deep. They came back empty, absorbed by a silence that felt alive. Divers descended, their lights cutting through layers of blue and black until even color disappeared. One later said, "Down there, time feels like it's waiting for you." Months passed. Then, 16 months later, a single piece of wreckage washed ashore on a remote island. A torn fragment of a wing, barnacles clinging to its edges, the serial number still legible. It was proof at last, and confirmation of the unthinkable. At the airport, people fell to the floor. Some cried until they could no longer breathe. Others sat motionless, staring at the screens. One father whispered, "At least the sea gave us something back." But the sea gives nothing. It only lends fragments and keeps the rest for itself. Cameras left, headlines faded. Yet far below, in darkness older than memory, 239 souls remained, untouched, unspoken, eternal. And above them, the world kept flying, as if nothing had ever vanished at all. Airports emptied long ago, yet the chairs still remember who sat there. The shape of waiting pressed into plastic, the warmth of hands that once held hope. Dust gathers on toy planes abandoned by children too young to understand what it means to wait forever. The announcements have stopped, but the echoes remain soft and endless. In a dim apartment in Kuala Lumpur, a woman still charges her husband's phone each night. She watches the screen light up, a brief pulse of memory. She scrolls to the last message, "See you soon," and whispers the words back, afraid that silence might erase him completely. The message never changes, only she does. Across the world, candles burn for them still. Wax drips onto photographs, smoke curls upward like whispered questions the air refuses to answer. Reporters have moved on, their cameras pointed elsewhere, but the ocean hasn't forgotten. It keeps its secret, vast and patient. Fishermen say that sometimes, when the sea is calm, they hear a low hum under the waves. Not the engine of a ship, but something older, softer, almost human. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's what's left of 239 souls still calling home through water and time. In Kuala Lumpur, a boy turns 9. He stands on the balcony, folding paper planes with steady hands. One by one, he lets them fall into the night. They glide for a moment before disappearing into the dark, like wishes carried by wind. Somewhere between sky and sea, hope still flickers, fragile, persistent, human. And for a breath, even silence feels alive, as if it, too, is waiting to be answered. Years passed, but the ocean never gave up its story. Sometimes after a storm, fragments appeared. A wing washed onto a beach in Reunion, a torn panel in the sand of Madagascar, a strip of metal carried thousands of miles by the current. Each piece was like a sentence from a diary written by the sea, incomplete, untranslatable, but undeniably real. Investigators arrived from every corner of the world. They mapped the ocean floor, listened for echoes, argued over data. Satellites whispered coordinates, sonar painted ghosts across the abyss. But truth stayed where it always had, beneath the waves, deeper than reason, older than language. In quiet homes across continents, the living learned to live with absence. Photographs still hung on the walls, their colors fading into memory. A mother spoke to her daughter's picture every morning. A father polished his son's pilot wings once a week, not out of hope, but habit. In one apartment, a woman kept her husband's flight jacket by the door, just in case. Each March, families gathered under dim light. They lit candles, not to summon answers, but to keep the darkness from feeling endless. One woman said, "I stopped dreaming of the crash. I started dreaming of landing." Another whispered, "Maybe they just kept flying, somewhere time can't reach." Meanwhile, the world kept moving. Planes took off from the same runway, their engines roaring against the same night sky. Every ascent became an act of faith, faith that the air still holds us, that control isn't certainty but courage. Maybe that's what MH370 left behind, the quiet truth that we never command the sky, we only borrow it. And when it takes something back, all we can do is remember, fiercely, gently, endlessly. The camera drifts high above the Indian Ocean, calm, endless, impossibly blue. Sunlight flashes across the surface, a glimmer like a signal returned. For a heartbeat, it looks as if someone below is waving back. The narrator's voice fades. It wasn't the ocean that took them. It was the silence, the kind that follows every question we never ask twice. Then the screen goes black. Only the wind remains, steady, eternal. And somewhere between memory and mystery, 239 souls are still flying.
That comes after every lesson we never learn.